Welcome to Happiness, Health and Relationships podcast. If you're looking for inspiration on powerful, healthy habits, you've come to the right place. I'm Angeline and I've been working with people for over 10 years in therapy. And this podcast will cut through the myths and misinformation on healthy lifestyle. I'll be interviewing experts in their field, providing top tips and motivation for 6 elements of living medicine. The 6 elements are reducing stress, exercise and fitness, nutrition, sleep, reducing addictive substances, and how to master healthy relationships. Let's get started. We've got Tom Oakley back from Oakley Fit.
He's back.
He's back. So really looking forward to today's chat. We had a great podcast
We did.
On the last recordings and lots of good feedback from that. So just to remind listeners that Tom is a level 3 personal trainer and a level 4 strength and conditioning coach. He's a local gym owner and you've been there for 8 years now. The gym has been going.
Yeah, 8 years and a week.
And it's just going from strength to strength. So we're going to get into today myth busting again, getting into a bit more detail with some of the stuff that we were talking about last time. We're going to try and answer questions that lots of people have.
Yeah, definitely.
And getting into injury and things like that and rehab and
covering some truths with questions that people have. We had a lot of fun last time, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
It
Yeah.
was good. It was good. And we had a lot of feedback from everybody in the gym as well, which is great, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good.
Absolutely. These are questions that people like to, would like to have answered, and people worry about joining a gym. They worry about getting injured and feeling a bit intimidated and all those kinds of things. I know that when I first started strength training, a couple of years ago now, over 2 years ago now, isn't it? It's about 2.5 years.
Yeah.
I felt so weak, especially my arms. And going through the menopause, so I was having lots of symptoms there. And I was stressed at the time, found it really hard. It took a while actually, and it made me ask at the time, and I know that lots of other women, is it harder for women to build muscle when you get beyond the age of 40?
Yeah, good question. Before I answer that, right, I just want to add to everybody who's listening to this. Ange said that she didn't think she had a lot of strength in her arms. Ange's arms look sick now. She's gained a lot of strength and a lot of you've just progressed massively, haven't you, mate? So right. So the question,
Thank you.
the question is it harder for a lady of over 40 to build muscle? It's harder for a lady who's 40 to build muscle compared to a 30-year-old. Okay, so there's that variable, yes, because testosterone, many different pathways start to kind of slow down a little bit. However, if you had a 40-year-old, if you had 2 40-year-olds, both ladies, all variables were the same, but one 40-year-old is getting better sleep and their nutrition and their water is better, then that 40-year-old is going to be able to build muscle easier than the one who isn't. So yes, absolutely. It is harder to build muscle as we get older, but with the right approach, it's still very doable. Is it as easy when you're 20? No, but it's still very doable as long as the things that matter are being put into place and you're consistent with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I turned up as a complete clueless,
Newbie.
didn't I really?
Yeah.
And I was quite scared actually to begin with because I felt so weak. I was worried about injury. I was, and so
I can remember having those conversations with you.
yeah. So it was really tricky balancing that because I obviously wanted to progress. I was doing it for health reasons, but I did have that apprehension of where holding back a bit really.
Yeah, because you don't want to start something that you're somewhat enjoying. Maybe not then as much as you are.
No, I wasn't.
You don't want to start something and then it get ultimately ripped out from underneath you because you injured yourself. So I get where you're coming from. And there's a lot of fear, but that is a lot of where it is, right? It just lies from the unknown because it's all so new. You don't really know, within context, if I should be pushing myself here or how hard I should be pushing myself. you also just don't know what you're capable of.
No, and I'm just thinking as well, because I know that a lot of other women, and I don't know whether it's because we can get injured more easily over 40 or whether we lose a bit of confidence, especially if we're not doing any exercises. I wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
Is it actually easier to get injured, or is it more a case of loss of confidence, and so we don't really know what we're capable of? What do you think?
Is it harder to, sorry, is it easier to get injured, more injury prone over the age of 40 as a woman? It's context again, because it's subject to the decisions that you make on a daily basis. Because again, it's not that strength training is like magic, but if you're strength training on a regular basis and, well, from a balance and fall prevention, there's a reason why it's literally prescribed to people above the age of 65 and above, right? If you're not very mobile, doing strength training in some realm of capacity, right? Because people think, guys, if you're thinking strength training, you're thinking, silly weight on a barbell. That's not the case at all. Strength training is just improving strength through ranges of motion, and that can be done body weight, right? So is it harder to get in? Is it easier to get injured over the age of 40? Well, it is if you haven't been doing anything. Yeah, if you're struggling to stand up off a bloody toilet bowl, then you're probably going to struggle. Like all of these aches and pains. The amount of people that come through the door that have got knee problems. Inherently, people think immediately that it's age. There's nothing about age that makes you less capable. It's the decisions that you make that make you less capable, right? So if you don't do any strength training, you sit on your ass for 40 years, and all of a sudden you're talking about my knees and my lower back. Well, yeah, that's why. It's not inherently your age, but it is the time that you've spent on this planet doing fuck all.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, of course. So then it would make sense to sort of a more gradual build up, I suppose.
Again, if we look at like the general public, right? It's not the case with everybody. Some ladies, and again, we're talking about ladies, but it's the case with both men and ladies. Some ladies might have gone to the gym when they were younger or in their 20s and they've just stopped for a bit. But there's a massive demographic of clients, ladies again, who haven't done any exercise before, right? And if they have, it's been Zumba, or group classes, or whatever it may be. And all of it fits a mold, because if you really like, I actually said this to somebody this morning. If you like playing badminton and you don't like doing strength training, then badminton might be the better option for you, at least to stay active. So, it's just in context. You do the thing that you'll enjoy the most, and you'll be more consistent with it. So again, it is just context. You've got loads of ladies that haven't done any exercise before. Well, they're definitely more injury prone than somebody who has. So it really boils down to that.
The stronger you get, the more resilient you get, and
yeah.
And in stretches as well. I know that I always, but again, I think I'm over careful, if anything, really. I like to do plenty of stretches, and yeah, that helps with my mobility as well. But it makes me feel more confident and better. That
it shows in the sessions for you, Ange, because like how many times have I said to you that you've got fantastic shoulder mobility? Yeah, and your shoulders show with that. I've said, we've just joked about your arms, but like you've got really defined shoulders because nutrition's great and all these different things, right? But because you've got great shoulder mobility, it's because you're consistent with those things. So if you've got more mobility, your capacity for movement is better. For example, I've just bent over, I've pulled my back out because I've just picking up whatever this is off the floor. Oh, that shouldn't be happening. So if you've got more movement capacity, your quality of life will be better. If you've got more movement capacity, you have the ability to perform better when it comes to the sessions. Like a squat is a movement that we should all be able to do. You're born able to squat. My little boy Max, he's got a bloody great squat. 18 months, you will be. And then again, because of the decisions that we make through our life, you slowly, progressively lose the capacity to squat because of chairs. Ancestrally, if you look at indigenous people that exist around the world, they will sit still in a deep squat. and just go about their day in that manner, you know. And we lose this, and that's a problem.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time sitting down at work now. Lots of people, don't they? You know.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that's not great for mobility. Obviously, we start to seize up a bit, but yeah. So I guess it's all relative, isn't it? Is what you're saying? You know, if we're very sedentary, then I guess we're going to be a bit more vulnerable to mobility decreasing.
Yeah.
And becoming weaker and more prone to injury and all the rest of it. So yeah, that makes sense.
If you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And that's very, very true. If you think as your body as a well-oiled, efficient machine, if your body recognizes that it doesn't need to go to that end range of movement, or it doesn't need muscle mass anymore, it'll get rid of it. It'll just get rid of it, because if your body doesn't need it, it won't keep it, because having it is more a demand on existence. So anything that your body recognizes isn't absolutely necessary, it will just delete it, as it were, as a pathway. You know, as you know, muscle's a perfect example of that. If you don't do the same thing, mobility the same. If you don't consistently give your body the stimulus of training to maintain muscle mass, or consistently give your body hip mobility, then you'll lose it, because your body goes, "Well, we don't need it anymore."
Yeah,
start stiffening up.
And it's all down to personal preference as well, isn't it? You know, I know that we're sort of joking that when I first started, I did it for health reasons. I did it because I wanted to feel stronger. And then I noticed that my arms were getting a bit more toned. And I said to you, I quite like this, you know.
Yeah.
Because I know that there's lots of people that don't want to look too bulky, and women are a bit afraid of, you know, if I lift weights, I'm going to get all muscly. And,
yeah. We were just talking about this before.
Yeah. So my arms aren't bulky by any stretch of the imagination, but they're toned now, aren't they? Which you know, I'm happy. That's a personal thing. I'm happy enough with that. So, you know, just to say that women that they just want to get stronger, but they don't necessarily want to be bulky, then it's absolutely that's a myth, isn't it? That you can actually do that.
That's actually something that I've come into contact with a couple of ladies, actually, within probably over the last month or so, where a lady's gone, "Oh, I don't want to do that style of training because I don't want to get big and strong." It's just misconception. Okay, strength training, lifting weights, isn't inherently going to make you look massive. It's a very specific style of training that will do that, and you actually have to eat in line with that. So even if you're training specifically to build muscle, like your training looks that manner, if you're not eating in that manner, it won't happen. So you still have to be very, very specific with that. The big, you know, the amount of ladies come through the door and go, "Right, well, you know, I just want to be more toned. I don't want to lose any weight. I just want to be more toned." Well, that same person will go, "But I don't want to do any strength training." It's not going to happen then.
I'm just interrupting this episode just for a few short moments to let you know that I've got a page where you can leave me a voice message. I want to make these podcasts as interactive as possible, and wherever I can, include you, my brilliant listeners, into these episodes. So head over to speakpipe.com/Angeline and go ahead and leave me a message. It could be a question, it could be a review. You might even want to let me know what you'd like to hear on the upcoming episodes. Whatever it is, please drop me a message, and we might even include your message in upcoming episodes. I'll endeavour to answer all the questions, but I can't guarantee that I'll get to all of them, but I'll certainly give it a good go. Anyway, let's get back to it. Yeah.
Okay, the goal is to be, how toned we are is only ever in relation to how much fat surrounds what muscle we have. So to be more toned is to focus on fat loss while lifting weights. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And this same lady said, I don't want to do any, I'm just not sure I really like doing strength training. I just don't want to be big and strong. I said, well, you know, obviously I'm always there for education and to support. And I said, you know, something along the lines of, the fact that that's your mindset is exactly the reason why you should do it. And then we just had a great conversation about it, you know, and she was obviously more lent towards it. But, you know, mate, I think I said this to Ange before, like, I'd already told her this information. Everybody gets told it. You know, we explain why we're doing things all the time. But the same reason why maybe those thoughts kept creeping back into her head was because of the misconceptions that she's heard over the years, you know, the different things that she's tried and all of that stuff, and maybe past failures and things you hear on the internet and friends and all these different things creates emotion in your head, emotional decisions. So even though we're giving them logic, they still rely on those kind of emotional, almost like blankets, as it were, to think, oh no, I'm just going to stick to what I know. But that's not what you want to do. You know, if we're especially at the stage now, you know, in the 2025 we're in now, the level of knowledge that the industry has around progression and, you know, it's mind blowing.
And actually, in order to get bulky, you would have to, you'd be eating loads of protein, you'd be on, you know, really restrictive fat, wouldn't you? And it would be extreme version of nutrition, wouldn't it?
Well, it would be extreme. It would be a different approach to nutrition. If your goal has always ever been fat loss, it'd be very different. But interesting, you said, this is quite interesting. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. You said, you have to eat loads of protein. If you turn around to me tomorrow and just say, because you're at your maintenance calories at the moment, I know that, don't know, right? If you turn around to me and say, Tom, I want to build loads of muscle, then you would need to be in a healthy surplus of calories to do that.
Right.
You can build muscle at maintenance calories, you can build muscle in a calorie deficit. But if you're going to be efficient with the process and try and utilize your time, the best environment is a healthy surplus. Okay. Arguably, protein could be lower if you're in a surplus, not higher. And the context within that is if you're eating the right amount of protein, and that's not a variable that would change, then if your calories then need to be higher because we're bringing you into a surplus, it's fats and carbs that need to be higher. And in some cases, you could actually bring protein lower to accommodate even more carbs and fats. Does that make sense?
Well, it's, you know, I'm learning something new every day here, really.
Again, yes, protein is there to build muscle, but past a certain point, you don't need any more protein.
I get you.
Protein is a standard need, and it's in relation to what you weigh. So if you weigh X amount, then you're going to bump your calories up. Your protein doesn't need to be higher. It can be. Some people like to eat more protein. I mean, I'd probably eat more protein than I need on a daily basis, but I just like it. I'd rather eat accidentally too much than accidentally too little.
Yeah, I like protein. It's filling as well, isn't it? It fills you up.
Absolutely. Protein keeps you fuller for longer.
I was just thinking there, just going back to injury, if we can for a minute, just because, like I say, I'm Mrs. Careful over here. So, how do we know when to push through? Because sometimes I've heard it said that, you know, if you've got a bit of a niggle in a muscle, then sometimes if you push through a little bit, it will go. It will feel better.
Yeah. Do you mean like if you was to go into a workout and you feel a bit stiff?
Well, you might have a bit of an ache. It might feel like an ache. And so then if after the workout it feels better, I suppose, is what I'm thinking, versus if it's got worse, then, you know, how to gauge when to pull back and when to try and work through.
Yeah, well, you've asked me that question at the right point in my life, because we used to be awful at that. I would just train through injury because of the need to train and to try and be better and to try and progress. But, you know, I'm at a point, again, what I just said there a minute ago, because logic, not emotion. You know, the reason why in the past I've trained through injury and potentially made scenarios worse is because of emotion, because I felt like I couldn't not train rather than just put them back. And as I've got older, things have been different. You know, the last 3 years, I'm just the least injury prone I've ever been. I mean, we'll get to that shortly, right? But the initial question was where to gauge stuff. So, perfect example, this morning, there was a lady who came in, obviously I won't mention any names. It's her second session. She's really sweet, right? I think she's really cool. And she said to me today when she came in, she's like, my legs are fucking sore. She was like, I nearly didn't come. And I hate that. The only reason that you wouldn't come is because you don't think you'll be able to do anything. But it's it's kind of an emotional decision. You're just worried. You're worried about what would happen at the session. If you're stiff, the best thing to do is come and do a workout because you loosen up. I said to her 5 minutes later, I said, I bet you after you've done your warm up, I said, you won't feel like stiff cliff. You're going to feel like bendy Wendy. And 5 minutes later, she was like, yeah, I feel fine now. And it's just because your body's just seizing up, isn't it? It's recovering. So you just warm up a little bit and you're just fine. She was absolutely fine. And again, it's just, it's that. So, and in addition to that, right? So yesterday I went for a run. I did an hour and 15 minutes yesterday. And when I first started running, even though I warm up, obviously I warm up efficiently. When I first started running, I just felt my feet. I can feel my feet when I was running. That sounds like a stupid thing, but you kind of don't want to. I just want to feel really light in the feet. I just felt a bit sluggish for the first 10 minutes. Well, if that was brand new information, and I could just about feel there's something that wasn't right in my ankle. Like the amount of times I've started running, my ankle's feeling a bit sketchy. It's just because I've been sat at a desk, or I've not done a lot that morning, or whatever it may be. You start running, problem goes away. You just start getting, your body starts moving a bit better. It's the same thing as like, if you don't use it, you lose it. If you don't do anything for 24 hours, you start getting a bit stiff. So there's a fine line. You've got to be, and it comes with a bit of experience, granted, but it comes also with communicating with the people around you. If you're at a gym, you've got coaches, they're going to know what will be a good opportunity to push through these things. So, absolutely, mate. Like I said yesterday, I went for a run, started running, ankle went great. 5 minutes later, it was fine. Ended up having like one of the best runs I've done in ages. So it's just like crazy, isn't it? And if that was an uneducated decision, I'm like going, oh, my ankle don't feel great, I'm going to stop. And, potentially wouldn't have got anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. So the importance of just trying to keep going, and obviously if it doesn't start to feel better, if it's the opposite then.
Around injury, yeah, of course. So like within injury, if you are noticing, if you're mid-work, let's say you got a knee problem, right? Most people have got either a knee problem or a shoulder problem. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go shoulder. There's a lad in the session this morning. He's had issues with his shoulder. So we've made some tweaks. For example, like this is a perfect example again, right? If you've got coaches, you've got a support network around them, speak to them because they can tweak things. He was like, mate, any pressing movements causing me problems? I said, well, what pressing movements have you been doing? He said, well, flat bench press and press ups. That's a horizontal press, okay? And inherently that can be a problematic angle to push through if your rotator cuff's not sat happily. So I said, right, well, let's try an incline press, because inherently that can open the shoulder up a little bit more, and just tweak a couple of things like elbow position and how you choose to hold the bar or the dumbbell. And just did a couple of things, problem went away. So you can ultimately work around stuff. But if you're, if it's shoulder or it's knee, and you're warmed up and all of a sudden you're thinking, I'm still in pain, then you shouldn't be pushing through pain. But there's a fine line. There is a fine line. It does take some time to be able to gauge that, I must say. But again, speaking to people and being vocal about these things will only help, won't it?
Yeah, and you were touching on it there, really, and I'm an advocate for that. When I started, I went straight into the classes, which were really good.
Yeah.
And then I got to a point where I thought, actually, I think I need some individual one-to-one here to really
make sure that you're doing stuff right.
Yeah, really lock in that form, because it's just the slightest of tweaks, isn't it, that makes it the difference between if you get a little bit of lower back pain, if you're doing a back squat and you get a bit of back, it wasn't terrible, but sometimes I would feel that it was that I'd got it right.
Yeah.
But then I didn't know quite what it was. So I booked in for half a dozen, I think it was, something like that, one-to-one with a personal trainer, and that was really good for me as well. And then I went back to the classes. That's it for part 1 in our 3-part series with Tom Oakley. Join us again next week, where we continue our interesting conversation around strength training and being mindful of injury and all things fitness. Look forward to seeing you on the next episode.